State Champs, Michigan's Hangtime is presented by Lawrence Technological University. Visit LTUathletics.com and recruit yourself. Hangtime is also brought to you by the Michigan High School Athletic Association, promoting the value and values of educational athletics. The Michigan Army National Guard, a proud partner of the MHSAA. The Detroit Athletic Club Foundation's Athlete of the Year Awards. Applications being accepted now through March 6, 2023 for the male and female high school Athletes of the Year. Check out previous winners and download the application today at dacathleteoftheyear.com. And the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan. Find out more at bcam.org.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome back. This is episode 3 of State Champs Hangtime Michigan, your show covering the boys basketball season here. My name is Lorne Plant, Scott Burnstein, TJ Kelley in the house as we are each and every week. We've got a lot to talk about. We had some big games that took place over the course of the weekend. Got some big games coming up. You know, it's all about the showcases and everything that's happening right now. But we want to start the show by talking a little topic-oriented and something that has changed this year. And maybe you've noticed this and have maybe kind of wondered why, and maybe some of its ramifications. And that's the fact that the Detroit Public School League are now playing games at 7 o'clock. I think, TJ, you said since 1981 they switched over to 4 o'clock games. Now they're playing at 7. What's the effect of that?
Well, when it comes down to recruiting, college coaches had the wonderful opportunity to come in and watch Tuesday and Friday 4 p.m. games in the in the Detroit Public School League. Then they would be able to go watch a 7 p.m. game. Every now and then there might be a 5:30 game that might be mixed in. But I know a lot of times college coaches in the past, they might go to Cass Tech, watch a half there. Then they go to Detroit Douglas / Murray Wright and be able to watch a half there. Go grab some lunch, and then you head out to watch a 7 p.m. game in the suburbs. Well, now there's that much more competition for which 7 p.m. game to go watch. I understand when I talked to Dr. Vitti months ago when the decision was made, and he told me that 80% of the high school coaches, as well as the athletic directors, said that they wanted to make the move to 7 p.m. The reason why you get more family to come in and watch the 7 p.m. games, parents get to watch the games at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about rushing out of work to watch their son at 4 o'clock. And I think, that, let's say this, we've just grown up with PSL games or DPS games being at 4 o'clock.
That's right.
And so now it's a change that's kind of striking people. Even, I know I had the opportunity to talk to Nebraska assistant Ernie Ziegler. He grew up in the city, went to Cody, coached at Cody, was a Central Michigan coach. And he was like, well, why would they make that move? And kind of explaining that from a recruiting aspect, that he would rather the games be at 4 o'clock. But I'm sure that, his son Trey, who graduated in 2011, that he would also be able to, or let's say this, would want to watch his son play.
Right.
And so if you kind of look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's a win for the parents. And I think that overall, once we get really used to it, it's going to be a win for the Detroit Public School League as well.
Yeah, now they got to make a choice.
Yeah, let me just throw my 2 cents in here in terms of the recruiting aspect of it. And I know that this isn't breaking news, and I apologize if this comes off not being delicate enough. But this is the stark reality. Okay? When the PSL was in its glory era, where there were literally dozens of Division I prospects, NBA prospects, you had a lot of college coaches, college scouts going in droves to these games. Now, if that was the same case in 2023, I think that the players would be at a real disadvantage recruiting-wise. Unfortunately, it is a stark reality. The comparison between the PSL of the 70s, 80s, 90s, even in the early 2000s to where it is now, to say it's a shadow is not even being respectful to shadows. So you really probably only have 3 or 4 or 5 kids in the whole league that are getting Division I looks,
right?
As opposed to going out to the OAA or the Catholic League in this area where you have much more bang for your buck in terms of who you're going to see recruiting wise.
Well, it seems to me that the argument then in that case would be, hey, I have the opportunity now to go to these 4 o'clock games. I get to see more basketball, not less basketball. So if anything, I may be able to see some kids that maybe I normally wouldn't have gone out of my way to go see because they're playing at 4, instead of I want to go to this game at 7 in this city because I need to be there to recruit effectively. I can have more kind of diamonds in the rough that I can discover.
I'm just saying if this would have happened 20 years ago, it would have been catastrophic.
Yeah.
And now I just see this as kind of like a blip.
Yeah. And again, I think maybe the PSL is saying this is reality of the times. We want our families to be able to enjoy these games together. We saw that on the football side of things too. A lot more games at 7 o'clock than they were at 4 o'clock.
And it's really only going to affect Cass and King.
Yeah, because it's
Renaissance.
And
Renaissance.
Renaissance. Western's got a little bit of talent, but I'm with you on that. So the other two are you have referees that
good point.
They could double up. They could referee 4 o'clock game. And I mean, if we've gone to PSL games, I mean, they are very, very efficient. An hour, 15 minutes, and they're in their car and grabbing dinner or whatever,
and
letting the dog out,
game,
and then they go to the game at 7 o'clock.
True. So now they're fighting for that
so
pool
that's a big
as well.
One. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see how it plays out. Again, we get the reasons, and we just wanted to bring that up right at the top of the show. We want to try to keep, something that's happening within the game to kind of discuss right off the bat, and then get into the meat of what we've got to discuss. So, a number of games we've covered on the State Champs Sports Network here over the past week, and we had some really good games. We had some classes. The Horatio Williams Classic took place, and others. Some of the games that we covered on State Champs, we'll let these guys then talk about a few of them. Beecher and Ferndale got together at the Horatio Classic. Ferndale won that game 63-52. It was Muskegon, which is still our number 1 team in the state, taking care of Warren Lincoln 50-45. Grand Haven and East Kentwood got together. That one went to East Kentwood by 9, 65-56. Chelsea Saline's been a good story out of Chelsea this season. We're going to have a feature actually coming up next week on that, where we actually have, one of the moms actually who took over as head coach. She was a coach herself at the girls level.
She was a mom.
Yes. Well, there you go. And she is now heading up the Chelsea boys. And they suffered their first loss on Tuesday, 62-60, but a good program, no doubt. Orchard Lake, St. Mary's, and Rice got together. Rice took that one 66-48. So, Scott, we'll start with you. A couple games and teams that you want to comment on.
Yeah, so shout out to Rice for bouncing back from that loss at De La Salle in Catholic League play. They really took it to Orchard Lake St. Mary's. St. Mary's had been surging these last couple weeks, even without their 2 sophomores. We'll get to that in a second, who were deemed ineligible by the MHSAA, Hines and Savoury. But Rice jumped out on top. I think he had a 25-point lead in the first quarter, and then they just kind of cruised to the finish line. Shout out to Xavier Thomas, another all-around performance. I think he had 21 points, 12 boards, like 5 assists. Warren Marshall, who's a real diamond in the rough as a junior. If you're a scout, get in on this kid now. He's getting the GLIAC looks, but I think it's possible he's a Division I player. Real bouncy, can shoot, had a great summer. He looked good. I think he had 14 against St. Mary's. Last thing I'll say about St. Mary's, then I'll move on to the Chelsea Saline, is that MHSAA has officially rejected the appeal of Savoury and Hines, Jayden Savoury and Isaiah Hines, who were initially ruled ineligible by the Catholic League, then they were ruled eligible by the courts. Now they've been ruled ineligible by the MHSAA, and it looks like there will be more litigation involved in this, and it will go back into the court system. So we should see they're going to be seeking an injunction to try to get these kids on the floor before the tournament.
Real soap opera going on in this.
But to talk about Chelsea Saline, we got this great piece coming out on the Chelsea coach. The Bulldogs are playing great basketball. They were undefeated until yesterday. Yeah. But Fab Frosh, Johnny Buckets, Johnny Sanderson put up almost a 40 ball last night. I think he had 39 points. He's averaging over 20 a game in his first 8 or 9 varsity contests. He's a name to really look for in these next couple years. His dad, John Sanderson, played in the Big Ten, played at Ohio State. I believe he finished out his career in the MAC at Ohio, but I believe he's an assistant at Michigan.
He is the strength and conditioning coach for Michigan.
Okay.
So very healthy gentleman. Usually see him eating baby carrots during the spring and summer, and I'm messing around. But I do see Coach Sanderson, and it was great to see his son at the Michigan Elite 25 back in August. But yeah, that freshman class is really nice. You got Jaqueline Stennis, who's over at Old Redford. Trevor Smith is at Okemos. Let's bring up Kelvin Torbert. I know beforehand we were talking about sons of players that we've seen. Kelvin Torbert, former number one player in the country.
Yeah.
I just mentioned someone who was
at Michigan State.
I just mentioned someone who was bouncy. You want to talk about bouncy?
Yes.
Kelvin Torbert. That guy could he was hit the rafters when he was
Wayne
bringing
Memorial
down
has some really good freshmen. But overall, there's a strong group of freshmen, and Sanderson definitely belongs in that conversation.
Speaking of strong groups, how about that Ferndale group?
I tell you what, great bounce back win by Ferndale. Juan Rickman does a great job. He's always going to load up the schedule. The OAA Red being one of the toughest conference in the state over the last 10 years.
Clearly.
I remember there used to be a conversation. Well, go back 20 years ago, it was definitely the PSL, and I want to say maybe 10 years ago, I think the OAA Red really started stepping up. In the last few years, we've seen the Catholic League that stepped up, but OAA Red has always been, since the beginning of their conference, as far as like having state champions with Clarkston, obviously, North Farmington making runs in the past, Ferndale making it to the state semifinals the last 2 years. But yeah, great win by those guys. Cam Reed really stepping it up. Chris Williams is a 4.0 student, high energy guy, very athletic. He's one of those guys where he's kind of developed his guard skills and improved, always bringing the energy, but it's great to see him, showing that much more of his offensive game and the hard work that he's put in. So hats off to the Eagles.
Tell us about East Kentwood.
Well, we have Mike Thomas over there, and I gave Mike 3 or 4 years before we'll be able to see him at the Breslin, as is, I guess, his MO of going to schools, Kalamazoo Central.
Been there twice.
A lot of success there. Then you look at Grand Blanc and had a lot of success there.
Been there with 2 different programs. Raised state championships.
And so you look at East Kentwood and the success that they've had with their track program, their football program in the past. I imagine that there are some basketball players that are walking around, and I think we brought up maybe last month or in an earlier show, Christian Humphrey-Rembert. The 6'7" junior, 2024, is a forward who just transferred back from La Lemure, and so he's at East Kentwood, making that team that much better. And they also have Hatchett, which is one of the top sophomore point guards in the country, or state, excuse me.
All right, fantastic. We're going to transition to the BCAM conversation. We call it Chalk Talk. I do it each and every week where I get it together with a coach and we talk shop, talk a little bit about their team, talk a little bit about their personal history. It is, of course, we'll be getting into Black History Month, and we wanted to go ahead and start celebrating some of the African American coaches here in our area. We have 2 this year. Remember, we have a Hangtime Girls show as well, which is fantastic, and we hope you check that out. But I had a conversation this week with the head coach at Cass Tech. There actually is a long legacy of relationship between state champs and Mr. Steve Hall. Here's a little bit of that conversation. Got to the state quarterfinals a year ago. Coming into this week, you were undefeated, 10-0, I believe. We've got you ranked 2nd in the state. Tell our audience about this team and shout out some of your guys who've been playing well.
I think I got a special group. I realized that we were pretty talented when we went to Ohio this summer. There was an event that BCAM had in collaboration with the Ohio Basketball Association. And they tiered us, and they put us in a tier with what was believed to be the top teams in Michigan. It was ourselves and 3 of the Catholic school members. So what they perceived to be the top 4 teams, and we played against the top 4 teams in Ohio, and that was 2 defending state champions, a runner-up, and a traditional power. And it's summer league obviously, but it was wall to wall with college coaches, and we played a team that's ranked nationally in the top 25 right now, Pickerington Central, out of Pickerington, Ohio, and we just had a phenomenal. We won all of our games. They said that we were the top team at the event, and that's when I realized that we were a little bit different, and we didn't have a whole lot of missteps throughout the summer or the fall. My kids run cross country. I'm the cross country coach. We got a pretty extensive weightlifting program, and I could just see some momentum being built. and I had some upperclassmen that were returning. Although, I got special underclassmen. Just the fact that those older pillars and stable people were in the program, kind of propelled us to another level. So I know you asked me to mention some players.
Yeah.
The person that gets the most acclaim is Darius Acuff. He's a sophomore,
Great player.
and he had a great freshman year, and he's, somebody told me, that you got something special when, your quote unquote best player comes back the next year as your most improved player, so he's a talent. But I also have 3-year starters, Makai, Walker, Christian Hairston. I have a fast rising senior who's special, and Trevon Cooper, who I think may be the top senior in the PSL in my opinion. I think he's that good. I think his ceiling is that high. I have Kenneth Robertson, Derek Miller. Those guys are special players too. And I have a senior, Isaac Sanders, who's just a exemplary captain and leader. So we got some up and coming guys. Some of my front court players are young, Amari Johnson and Lee Harris. And I just think that we have a nice puzzle, Lauren. What we have when we look around, I see teams with 2 and 3 Division I players. I don't necessarily think we have that, but I think that we have a nice puzzle. We like one another. We play hard together. We play for each other.
All right, we thank Coach Hall for joining us on this week's Chalk Talk. Again, we've had a long, storied relationship with state champs, and again, one of the first stories I ever did was the story we did what was called a flashback back then. This was 20 years ago, talking about Brenda Gatlin, who was the head coach at Southeastern for a time, the first female varsity coach to head a PSL team. And again, the situation we have in Chelsea now, we're seeing that women lead a varsity team, and there's been others.
I remember a couple of years ago at Hazel Park. I think her name was Jerry Fuhrer.
Oh.
She led that program for a good 8-9 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, Keisha Brown. Let's remember her.
Yeah.
She wound up passing of cancer a few years ago, but I remember her leading Mount Pleasant Sacred Heart to the state championship. And that was 16, 17, 18 years ago, or I think it was 2004. So yeah, we're right on spot with that timeline. But yeah, just remembering her. And the thing is, basketball is one of those things where there are more. It doesn't have to be men. You'd be surprised. I mean, I'm not going to talk to Peggy Carr and some of the other Lisa. If Lisa Leslie and I were sitting at this desk, I'm shutting my mouth. I'm not saying anything because she can teach me that much more. But Andrea Cabana obviously bringing that to Chelsea, having a lot of success through there. Her son plays on the team, Joey. He's been a standout this year, and so yeah, they're having a lot of success. And it doesn't matter, your gender and stuff like that. If you can coach, you can coach.
I think it's a foreshadowing. I would predict in the next 5 to 10 years, you'll see not just women coaching men's basketball in high school. I think we're close to having a woman be named a college head coach or even a pro head coach. I mean, Pop at San Antonio, one of his top assistants is a female.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and we're seeing it on the referee side all over the place, even at the NFL level. So, yes, again, fantastic. I think that is a trend we're going to see moving forward. And we talked about the power era of the PSO when Steve Hall was playing in the mid-'80s at Cass Tech. It doesn't get stronger than that kind of his run in between 85 and 89.
It's great that he came back, too, because, he was at a Division IV program, won 3 straight state championship at Rogers.
Which we talked at length about.
And then he was at Northwestern.
Yes.
The city championship.
Right.
That's right.
Then he went to college.
Yep.
But it was great. He came back, 5, 6, 7 years ago, took back his alma mater, Cass Tech, has brought them up a level in terms of their the level that they play at consistently, and it's just great when you have basketball minds like that want to come back. We've seen it a couple times. I mean, I know in Oakland County, Derek McDowell at Farmington, Arnett Jordan at West Bloomfield, guys that were coaching college that came back to impart that wisdom on the youth. So that's great to see.
That's right, and it moves us into our rankings segment. As you know, TJ does our rankings for state champs. We've got our Super 20 that we're doing this season, all season long, in celebration of state champs, celebrating 20 years as an organization. So we've got our top 20 rankings up there. Talking about Cass Tech, they are ranked number 2 in the state. You've still got Muskegon at number 1.
Yeah, I was able, if anybody went to the Horatio Williams Freedom Games at Ferndale this past Saturday, you got to see Muskegon. they wound up having a nice win over Warren Lincoln, and Cass Tech also wound up winning on that same day. So you had number 1 and number 2 teams. Darius Acuff, he's quickly joining that conversation as far as, who's the top player in the 2025 class. Talking about somebody who's already 6'3", he shoots the ball very well. He's almost too cool for school. I've talked to some college coaches and they're like, does this kid sweat? And I'm like, I'll tell you this, if you're down by 1 and you got 2 free throws to go and with a second to go on the clock, you want them
to be error-free.
Yes. And I think that's one thing that they call him Cheeks. I think that's one of the things that he brings to the table. But yeah, they've got quite a little bit of talent. And not only that, the beautiful thing about what Steve has been able to do at Cass Tech is he has a huge rotation where he's playing 10, 11, 12 guys. He mixes in some football players. I got to see Corey Sadler.
Yeah.
Best freshman in the PSL last year on the gridiron.
Yes, and he was... And at the top of their press, he's one of those guys where, as far as athleticism, motor, toughness, he brings a lot to the table. And so you get in the PSL, Detroit Public School District, you have, 3 more years to look forward to seeing this guy.
Yeah, he's bouncy, as it were.
Yes.
He's very bouncy. Yep. How about somebody who just got into your top 20, Grand Rapids South Christian?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Grand Rapids South Christian. We can go back again. David Kuhl is now the athletic director, former Mr. Basketball, 2006. But yeah, he's got a lot of multi-sport athletes, and I think we brought it up last week, and I like to try to bring it up. Guys that play, they're playing football, won a state championship, the Sailors did back in November. Then you look, they're also playing soccer, and they're also playing basketball. So, they have an opportunity to, be 3 times a champ in an entire year.
That winning culture builds.
Without a doubt. And so just to bring up a couple of their guys, Carson Viss is only a sophomore on that team. He's one of the top sophomores in the state. And then you also have Jonas Vanderwood as well as Jake Vermaas, who also are playing for Jeff Mings. And I would look forward to seeing them as a possible sleeper. I think that they can get to the Breslin in Division II this year. And so that's hats off to those guys.
Scott, you talked a little bit about Orchard Lake St. Mary's already, but how about number 4, North Farmington? Where are they at right now?
So North Farmington, I got them bumped up to my number 1 slot in Oakland County for my rankings. It's the first time I think North Farmington's ever been my number 1.
Wow.
They've been at 2 or 3 over the years, but I've never had them at 1. I bumped them up over Rice after Rice lost to De La Salle. North Farmington is 9-1. Their only loss was on like a 40-footer to Lincoln at the buzzer. So they very easily could be undefeated. Probably the most talented, is the most talented stacked team that the Negocians have had since that 2016 Final Four run. Mm-hmm. And I love what I'm seeing in terms of the chemistry between Ryan Hurst and Prince Jackson and Tyler Spratt. These are guys that didn't play together last year. Spratt and Hurst played together, but Jackson had to slot in after sitting out a year in a transfer from Farmington, and they're just complementing each other so well. And then you can see on social media after the games the love that's being shared between at least Hurst and Jackson. I see Ryan Hurst shouting out Prince Jackson almost every game, and Ryan Hurst is the more heralded player, the big scorer, the one that probably gets way more headlines or does get way more headlines than Prince Jackson. I can see him almost every game shouting him out on social media. So, nothing but blue skies ahead for North Farmington if they keep playing at this clip. They play such great defense, and their offense is just so versatile right now. They check every box in terms of what you need for a run to win a league title, trying to unseat Ferndale, who are the 2-time defending champions in the OAA Red. And I want to make 2 more points, and I'll hand it back off to you.
Yeah.
We were talking about the OAA Red and how strong it is. I could be wrong on the stat, but I'm pretty sure in the last 14 years that at least 9, if not 10 of those 14 years, the OAA Red has placed a team in the Final Four. So, I mean, that's like, it's like a 70%
that's great.
clip. And then the last thing I'll say about St. Mary's, we've talked about them, but I want to throw out some love to some guys that maybe don't get as much. Last week I talked about Bugsy Smythe while I was talking about Trey McKinney and Sherrod Barnes. But this week I want to say Mason Wisniewski is a big guy. He's a junior, really fundamentally sound, really good footwork. pretty efficient down on the blocks and is doing a really nice job patrolling the paint for Coach Covert. And then Andrew Smith is another guy that is unheralded, junior, that comes off the bench and it just is really, really solid in everything he does. And I can see him playing college basketball. He's definitely a kid that has that next level of potential.
Fantastic. Hey, if you want to check out the rankings, all you need to do is go to statechampsnetwork.com. Just click on the rankings icon, and we update that list on every Monday. So our Super 20 is there. And, of course, you're welcome to weigh in. You can DM us on social media and tell us who you think needs to be in the rankings. We'll make sure we pass on the message. But TJ puts a lot of time into nailing it down to just 20, especially when you're going across all divisions.
And there are a lot of
we've
talked about Chelsea. You know, obviously losing to Saline, but previous to that, undefeated. Easily could have been in the top 20, but definitely a team that I'll continue to monitor. You know, and there are quite a few other teams that are putting together.
I mean, Ferndale's
very
like
fine seasons.
4-5 right now. That is a very deceiving record. You know, their best player, Caleb Renfro, just got healthy. Yeah. They play a really, really difficult schedule. Yeah, so, I mean, Ferndale's probably in that range of guys that have that, you know, shouting distance to the rankings, but their record, you know, they'll get over 500 and they'll be
about the OAA Red. I mean, you've got Oak Park, you know, who I think is, you know, Durant Shepard does a great job there. Yeah. They also have a lot of talent. Geo Smith is another guy that we need to look forward into the sophomore class. His older brother is also an impact player for them. LaJuan Holloway is a big kid for Oak Park.
Shep's doing a great job at Oak Park. And then Clarkson,
Robert Smith,
you know,
guy.
the kind of the pride of the OAA Red since it started. It was originally called the OAA 1 or whatever, but in the mid to late 90s. But up until the last couple of years, Clarkson was always, you know, the dominant force. I think they won 14 straight league championships, but they really haven't gone anywhere. They might not have won league championships the last couple of years, but they're 9-1 out of the gate right now. And they've lost players, and it doesn't affect them. Guys that have left for prep school, or Fletcher Lawyer, if you're watching television last weekend, was tearing it up for Purdue. He only played 2 years at Clarkson for Timmy Wassilk, but Wassilk's got that team really, really focused. And look for Braden Wiley, who's a senior, who's playing really good right now. All right.
One thing, I didn't even mention this to the producer Kevin or anybody. I always like to once in a while think of something I want to throw out there and just catch you on the spot. They have not been prepped for this or whatever. But if you had to give Mr. Basketball today, who would you give it to based on the performance so far this season?
This season, to me, it's R.J. Taylor. I just love what he does with Grand Blanc. I mean, they like, he's a winner. That guy's gonna. You talk about a kid. We're talking about this season.
Never stops.
But they go out there and they make those big wins. They just beat North Farmington. They beat Orchard Lake St. Mary's. But a lot of it has to do with R.J. Taylor. And since the spotlight is on him, if you want to look over all his career, he's probably not going to lose 10 games in his career. Add a state championship to that. Hopefully, Torrey Jackson can lead them back. I mean, if that winds up happening, then there are not a lot of guys that have gone to 3 Class A/Division I state championships, or even to the semifinals. You might have to go back to the 80s, with like Antoine Jobert and those guys. The Flint Northwestern teams that we're going to see somebody that just made that large of a run. And just a very. At the end of the day, he winds up winning.
Beat Arthur Hill too.
Yep, and just beat Arthur Hill. And Arthur Hill's another team. They got Lionel Brooks, who just moved up from Indianapolis Normal High School. I've been fortunate where I've seen him at multiple times, and so as soon as he was here, I've known him for a couple of years, and so. But but that was a nice win by Grand Blanc. I expect them to win the Saginaw Valley.
R.J. Taylor, who do you say?
Taylor's a leader in the clubhouse. I'd probably pick R.J. Taylor too, but K.K. Brown. I mean, I love what I'm seeing from Caden Brown right now. He's having that kind of senior season. I mean, he looked great as a sophomore, great as a junior, and he's just, up in the ante even more as a senior.
And a program.
Yeah, and a program. Tyler Jamison over in Port Huron is having an unbelievable year. Sonny Wilson is Sonny Wilson.
Right. Anthony Bernard's having another great year. If you look at what Grosse Pointe South is doing.
We're saying one right now.
I'll say K. Brown.
Ask me after the Catholic League, after the end of the Catholic League championships, because if there's one team off of 7 Mile that winds up winning it, then a lot of that's going to have to go with Mr. Wilson.
Book it. I will ask you.
Yes.
Trust me.
You asked me.
We will discuss it.
Toledo bound Sonny Wilson.
Yep,
Exactly.
yep.
We'll replay the tape.
Northern
from
Iowa born
here.
bound.
R.J. Taylor.
R.J. Taylor.
All right, before we go, guys, obviously we always like to let you know big games coming up this weekend. The Gotta Get It Hoops Classic taking place. East Kentwood this year. That is, so Warren De La Salle, a lot of East-West matchups would be great ones. Warren De La Salle, Grand Rapids Christian, Kalamazoo Central and Brother Rice, Hudsonville and Flint Carmen Ainsworth, Beecher against Benton Harbor. Also, the Dragon Winter Classic on Sunday at Romulus Summit Academy North. You've got Detroit Central and E-Course getting together. The host school, Summit Academy North versus Taylor and Roseville and Detroit U Prep.
I think Malik Olafoy just went for like a 50 ball the other day for E-Course.
Wow.
Yep.
So
Yep.
get out and see Malik Olafoy before he's gone. He's got another year.
That's right.
E-Course scores a lot of points.
Yep, that's for sure. That's for sure. And E-Course wound up making it to the state semifinals last year. I think that they obviously didn't have the outcome that they wanted, but Kenny Morass and as well as Malik Olafoy make one of the toughest backcourts in the state, regardless of class. And Gerard Abram doing a great job there.
And like I mentioned, you can always let us know games that you would like us to cover here on the State Champs Sports Network. I promise you, of that group, we will be covering a generous smattering of games from that particular list, and you'll be able to watch that again. Usually I would say your probably best bet is heading over to the State Champs Instagram page. That's where you're going to see a lot of the great clips from the matchups that we are covering. But of course, follow us on all the social media platforms. Again, talk to us here about what you want to see us or hear us talk about here on Hangtime. I am Lorne Plant for Scott Burnstein and TJ Kelley. We will see you next week for another round of State Champs Hangtime.
State Champs, Michigan's Hangtime is presented by Lawrence Technological University. Visit LTUathletics.com and recruit yourself. Hangtime is also brought to you by the Michigan High School Athletic Association, promoting the value and values of educational athletics. The Michigan Army National Guard, a proud partner of the MHSAA. The Detroit Athletic Club Foundation's Athlete of the Year Awards. Applications being accepted now through March 6, 2023 for the male and female high school athletes of the year. Check out previous winners and download the application today at dacathleteoftheyear.com. And the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan. Find out more at bcam.org.